You are listening to Been There, Done That. We present some of the smartest people connected to the business of coffee. People who've succeeded in the tough grind of hospitality by staying ahead of the rest. So join us as we explore the secrets to their success and help you accelerate your business. This show is brought to you by the Coffee Commune, where the coffee community comes to collaborate. Enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Phillip Di Bella, and you're listening to another episode of Been There, Done That, where we bring industry experts to you that have done exactly that. They've been there and they've done that. Today we're going to talk about business sales, and we've got the best in the business here. Vince, who's a co-director of Link Business Brokers. Welcome, Vince. And we've got Jodie, who's one of the business brokers at Link and works very closely here with the Commune, and our membership manager, Shari. Link's known for results, which is a great thing. We love results. Yep. Integrity and unwavering confidentiality, of course. The Business Brokers Australia boasts a reputation as the country's leading brokerage. Each business broker is equipped with specialist knowledge and is passionate about helping clients achieve their business goals. With a business broker to suit every industry, you can be assured that when dealing with Link Australia, you will be expertly guided throughout the entire process. And welcome to the show, guys.
It's, thank you. Thanks for having us.
One of the most asked questions of late has been, how do I sell my business? Are businesses selling? Are they buying? Are they not? We're going to unpack all of that in the next 30 minutes or so with you guys being experts in this field. And it's something that doesn't get a lot of airtime. So, you know, in the spirit of the show, we always say it's called Been There and Done That, because we want experts in their field to come on the show, share their knowledge with our community. And our community is over 1,200 cafes, a part of the Coffee Commune, and over 1,600 members, fast approaching 1,700 members in total. So big audience, and the audience is very, very interested in the spirit of they've put their, kahunas on the line. Yeah. They've invested the money, they've done the hard yards, they've built their businesses, and then some of them get to milk them along the way, but they obviously would love to exit at the end. But before we get into that, Vince, tell us a little bit about Link and what makes you guys so passionate about what you do in the art of, selling people's businesses.
Sure. Thanks, Phil. Link is, as you mentioned, we've been around for 30 years. We have a number of different teams in our office in Brisbane, where we have a hospitality section that are all specialists in hospo. So like Jodie and I, we both come from hospo. I owned a bar and restaurant myself. Yep. So I did the whole entry-exit thing myself, went through the process, dealt with a business broker at the time and went, holy crap, I think I can do better than this guy.
Yeah, we love this journey. I love it when people have been in the trenches.
And Jodie's been in the game herself in hospo, so we both got experience, and then we've got a group in our office that all specialise in hospo. They have own hospo businesses themselves.
Yeah. So of course you do more than hospo, but today we're going to obviously narrow in on hospo because that's our audience, but you've obviously do a lot more than just hospo. So for anyone else listening, because we do have a lot of other business owners that listen to this, so anyone that's obviously interested, and all the details will be put up for links that you can contact Jodie and Vince directly, as we do with all of our experts that come on the show. Contact these guys directly if you're looking at selling either right now or down the track, and we'll explain that better later, because we don't want people using you guys reactively. We want them to use you proactively.
Yeah, that's hopefully what we get over.
So you come from the industry, you've been in the trenches, you know what it's like. So we're going to be talking from experience, obviously, and the problems that you guys solve. Before I do that, tell us a bit about yourself, Jodie.
Okay, so I've got 20 odd years in food service, so more from a food manufacturing point of view, new product development, costing through to that end user, as well as a bit of events in the past there as well. So I've been a broker now for a number of years with Link, and as we've just said there, hospitality, we've got brokers across that, as well as other industries, and we've got accountants on boards and so forth there as well. So food hospitality and events, we love that, we breathe that, and I'd like to say that we're still at the heart of it all, it's that service that we deliver. So it's a service industry that we get out there and talk to the hospitality businesses and see what it's like there in the trenches.
Yeah, great. Okay, so let's kick off. I want to break it down into parts, right? And part one is where listeners listening to this, it's always about the outcome. I always talk about build things from the outside in. It's the same way we do these podcasts. It's all about the outside in. In this case, it's all about those people listening that are saying, hey, I do want to build a business to sell one day. And even if you're looking at going into business, I say to people, that's when you want to be really mapping out, being exit ready. ready. So let's break it down. Vince, what's exit ready to you? What does that mean? So if anyone listening to this, whether they're about to start a business, they're in business, or they've made the decision they want to sell, what does exit ready actually mean?
Well, for me, it's making sure all the fundamentals are in place. So having the structures, all the structural things need to be in place. So when you're selling a business, basically you're selling fundamentally assets.
Yes.
And they are, tangible, intangible assets. If those assets aren't in a sale-ready situation, then you've got yourself a problem that business is not ready for sale. So things like making sure the lease is in place.
Yep. So your legals.
So your legals are in place, or your financials are in order,
yes.
and that so when it comes to the end of financial year, as soon as we can, we're trying to get hold of their financials to see how's the business tracking at the moment. What's the trend. We because we understand the industry, we're looking at all the margins, and we're going, well, the margins are in the same order that they should be. So cost of sales, the wages, which is always a big thing.
Yeah. So let's unpack it. So let's go back to legals, right? And jump in any time, Jodie. Yeah. But with legals, obviously, we say to people, the biggest part of legals is your licensing, any IP that you might have to make sure it's all registered, legal entities. Are you a company? Are you a sole trader, and all the rest of it? What are the common pitfalls in that space? So we'll break it down bit by bit. So in legals, what's the key tips that people should be looking at to be sale ready?
Well, so let's start with the lease. It's for a hospitality or a retail business, that's a fundamental aspect, because if the business can't continue to trade in that particular spot, or there is something that's going to impact the trade in that spot, that's a factor.
Yep. So make sure your lease is in order.
Yeah.
And are we seeing that leases long term or short term are better? Because I remember years ago it used to be the longer the lease, the better, but now people see that as a big risk. Well, what's trending in the lease space?
I still think fundamentally people like options.
Yeah.
So they like to have the option to renew.
Cool, yeah. Because that sort of covers both bases, right?
It covers both bases.
Yeah. Good tip.
Yeah. So, but just looking for the little things that have been slipped in, and I'm not going to bag landlords here, but
read the fine print.
Read the fine print, because there's little clauses that got put in there, like a little thing like a relocation clause.
Yes.
I mean, a few years ago,
demolition clauses.
Demolition. So a few years ago, we sold a very prominent restaurant in South Bank. I won't name names, but and he did not know that he actually had a relocation clause in his lease, and it, obviously during the process of the sale, it comes out, and of course the buyer's going, what does this mean? I'm in a very prominent location where I am. If I get moved somewhere else, that's going to obviously affect my trade.
Change it, and it changes the value of the business, right?
Correct.
So key one for the listeners there is, make sure you've got a lease, because it's scary to see how some people have got a handshake, or, and a lot of families, for the listeners out there that are renting off any family member or friends, it doesn't matter. It's still got to be a transaction. So get yourself a lease. Make sure that you've got options on that lease, so that if you are trading well, you can extend, and if you're not trading well, you can cut it short. And obviously look at the fine print. So right off the bat, there's some great points from the guys at Link, is just make sure that lease is in order. And of course, that's why people should be coming to specialists like yourselves, because you know what to look for, and you know the loopholes and all the stuff that gets in there. Now, what about in being registered? Another question that comes up in legals is, should I be registered as a company? Should I be a sole trader? What are you finding is the best coverage and option for people?
You want to take that one?
Sure.
Dave?
Yeah, sure. Generally speaking, being a company is the best option. It's being a sole trader is fine if you're of a certain size.
Yes. But
generally speaking, we suggest you have a good, solid company structure.
Company setup, and make sure your assets are detached and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Separation.
Yeah. Cool.
And while we're at, there's one small thing where we sometimes get into problems, is where people have actually set it up. Their accountants decided to get clever and set it up through a trust, and then things get a bit convoluted.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that when we start talking to people and we understand the ownership, we say go and talk to your accountant.
Yes.
Then that's why you need to get experts involved, because if we're going to have to disentangle that structure because it's through a trust, well, that could cause...
Of course. And there's another key tip there, is make sure that when you part of getting exit ready, you need to have not only a good quality business broker that represents you well, but you need to have a good lawyer and a good accountant. Because, a lot of people try and take a shortcut, and then I always say what's easier today bemes more difficult tomorrow.
That's right.
Whereas if you spend the money now and you get the team around you, it's going to become a lot more feasible and efficient down the track. So we covered a bit of legals, and of course we're not going to have the time to cover everything in depth, and that's why they need to get get a hold of you guys and say, hey, what do I need to do, as a blueprint and all the rest of it. So I encourage anyone out there. But the aim of this podcast is to give people those key nuggets and takeaways to say, well, geez, I need to make sure I'm across this. And hey, let's engage the experts like Link to obviously go down the process. And as I keep saying, be proactive. Don't engage when you're ready to sell. Engage when you're thinking of selling.
Absolutely. It could be a 6, 12, 24-month process. It's that preparation. So have these conversations now. The sooner the better.
So on that, Jodie, what are you finding is the common, what's that sweet spot? When should people really be talking to you guys before they're looking at exiting?
Well, we've just finished off a financial year. So one would think that you've got 3 years of financials that you can stop and review and see where you've done really, really well and see where the gaps are for improvement. Now that we're just, starting the new financial year, you might want to rejig a menu, or you might want to, just look at some other key lines there, as well as, again, you would have assessed your lease and you might have, 12 months less. You've got some 12 months, into the future. You might want to look at engaging some of those options. So you've summed up a year, and that there is just grab yourself a coffee, take some time to see where you can go into the future and start these conversations with us now, because we can, and we'll probably talk to that a bit later on, look at doing an appraisal, which would help give you some grounding, give you some solid understanding of what your business is worth here and now and what it could be in the 6 months,
it's a great
12
point.
months,
it's a great point. So it's grabbing that data and analysing it, and then out of that, and that's why let's talk about the appraisals, because that's something that obviously you offer people, and anyone out there that, should be getting a hold of these guys. They'll do an appraisal for you on your business and see where you are. Because a lot of people, and I've heard you talk, tell me stories about this, Jodie, where you say, well, sometimes we say to people, hang on, hold off 6 months, don't sell now, because we can get you 20% or 30% more if we clean up some certain areas. So, so obviously the appraisal is a great time to obviously look at people's data and analyse it, and then say to them, hey, this should be the strategy moving forward. So talk us through that.
Price expectations, it might align after you've got that power of looking at the data. So we would take, again, just to say you've got 3 years of financials, we would take that, we'd take some other conditions into play, so how long your lease is, where you're located, perhaps look at your diversified revenue streams, key components like that. And we have an appraisal tool, proprietary appraisal tool, that will look at in real live data. So it will compare your key metrics to businesses that have sold. So this is such a strength of knowledge and empowerment that we're comparing similar stats to what's out there, and it'll give you a guide on an approximate price.
It's
listing-wise,
fantastic,
where the value might be.
What the market will actually pay for your business, right? And not what your accountant thinks it's worth.
Correct.
But what we actually think the market will pay for you.
And that is very important key there. And obviously that tool is amazing. It's a proprietary tool you guys have built. So guys, get onto LinkedIn and get onto it. And I'll tell you from experience, I had a laugh. Well, I had a laugh after I wanted to strangle him when my bank manager and accountant said, at the time said, your business, Di Bella Coffee, is worth $3 million. And I nearly had a freaking heart attack, right? And I said, $3 million. I said, that doesn't even cover my leasing of my equipment. Are you for real? Oh, but that's what we value it at. Yeah. And 24 months later, it sold for circa $47 million plus, right? So it was a $60 million deal all up. And you can imagine the look on my face. So I made them give me a day's settlement. And I love telling this story. I made them give me physical checks because I was with NAB and they were coming from NAB. So I made them give me physical checks, took a photo and sent it to the bank manager, and I said, thank God you're not in the business of valuing businesses and I didn't listen to you, right? So you've got to go to the experts. I can't stress that enough. I talk about it from experience. Come to people like yourself, get the appraisal tool on it, because there is a formula, right? So, so let's talk through first, before we talk about that, let's talk through the blind spots. What are the common blind spots that a lot of business owners, especially cafe owners or restaurant owners, go through when it comes to, being ready for business sale or wanting to sell their business? What are they not looking at?
Just how much they're involved. So this over-reliance on they themselves, the world revolves around their day-to-day. So it's looking at too much dependence and whether we could extract them out of it, put documented systems in, or train up other key staff members to ensure that the role of the owner is covered across other staff members, so that when we're looking to exit you out, a new buyer can come in and be fully trained into the operations because they've got the paperwork or they've got the ops there as well, and they can see themselves in the business. So when a owner is looking at what they do, their secret formula, what they've done day in, day out, look to document that skill set there and train the other staff members so it's not entirely reliant on you as the owner.
It's an excellent point. There's two major key takeaways there. Is one, your business is worth less if it relies on you being in the business because the person buying looks at that and says, how do I replace you? So you've got to see that, listeners, that's a great point to look at the red flag. And the second one is system and processes.
Yes.
You need to have your systems and processes documented. The better your systems and processes are documented, the higher the valuation of your business. So let's segue into that. What are some of the key levers listeners can do right now if they were looking to exit to make sure that they're getting, and we started with those two already, getting the maximum dollar for their business? So one is obviously making sure that it's not reliant on the person as much. That adds, let's say, a bonus point. Make the systems that you've got and process in place, that adds another bonus. Any obviously special IP and proprietary tool or recipe that you have adds another one. What are some of the other key things that adds value to a business? Obviously the lease one you covered. Having a strong lease with as little clauses as possible, with a lot of options adds another. So if we were building this one point at a time, what are some of the other key points?
I mean, I think one of the other things that is really important that is coming back to the point Jodie made earlier is sitting down and actually doing an analysis of your financials. So looking at your margins, because
knowing your numbers,
because and being able to know how to benchmark your numbers against the
another
industry.
one there. So know your numbers, benchmark your numbers.
Yeah, so that you can actually say, okay, look, right now my cost of goods is at this level. I need to find a way to fix that. Do I raise my prices? Do I?
Good point.
All those sorts of things. Because the first thing a buyer will do generally is they will give their financials to their accountant, and their accountant will do that exercise and start looking at saying, well, the margins are not very good on this. The business is making X dollars in turnover, but it's only making Y dollars in profit. It's so if you can get that say at or above benchmark, well, then you've got yourself a very sellable business.
And what that screams to me is I would take one step further and build a strategy so that when the buyer's accountant comes back and you go, yes, and I know, and here's the strategy to fix it, and therefore there's more bonus points in the uplift. If they know that you've actually built, and I talk a lot, a great template is collect your data, analyze your data, and then build your strategy. So if you're selling your business and you've got your data, you're analyzing your data, and this is what I'm hearing, and you build that strategy on the front foot, then a buyer coming in looks at that and goes, hey, and that's what I did with Di Bella Coffee, is that I actually signed SPA, the share purchase agreement was signed over Christmas 2014, but it was signed so that I exited in 2017 because I had a strategic plan with upside and I got paid the bonus, and that's why it was reported 47, but it was closer to 60 because of all the upside and the strategy. So they actually kept me on to build that strategy. And it's no different for a cafe. The numbers won't be as high as that, obviously, for a cafe, but it'll still be the same sort of formula, is they could pay you what it's worth now, but they could also ask you to stay on for 6 months or 12 months to get that uplift and strategic. And that's one of the key points here, and why I can't stress it enough. You need to go to a business broker that knows what they're talking about. There is more than one way to structure a deal.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about that, right? There's a lot more. People just think it's a sale like a house, right? I've sold the house. I want to sell my house. I put a stick out the front. I put some marketing up, and away we go. So talk us through.
If only it would be so much easier for us.
Yeah. So let's talk around some common ways that people can think about in how a sale can be structured.
And what you just raised is what we're finding becoming more and more common in business sales, and that is earn-out kind of arrangements. And so historically, solicitors and accountants have been very negative about earnouts, but I actually think if you put yourself on the front foot and you actually structure yourself correctly, using an earnout can actually make you more money.
Win-win, right? Yeah, because the buyer gets the upside that you built the strategy
and the confidence,
correct, and you get and the stability and the smooth transition, and you as the seller get maximum ROI, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so there's obviously a clean sale, you're buying, but there's going. So let's talk about, you're obviously buying assets and going concerns. People unfortunately aren't paying for a lot of goodwill these days. But definitely, obviously, your assets and all the rest of it. And what are some other ways that you could structure a deal?
I don't know.
Partnerships and stuff like that.
So there is a partnership, probably not as common. But as we just said there's earn-out clauses that could come into play, or
shares? Are people breaking things down in shares? Shareholding?
We're doing more
than
share sales, not so much in hospo.
But in other industries.
Certainly in
correct.
other industries.
Yeah, because I'm hearing all sorts of stuff. I mean, people are trying to get really creative with hospo businesses, right? And doing stuff like even vendor financing. You know, you've got some of the stuff that we're seeing is, and that's quite common.
Yeah.
If somebody just wants out, we exited a massive cafe like that when it was time for my wife and her sister to have kids, and they built a monster of a business down at View, which is now called Sabre. It was a monster. And the way we did that is we brought twins in who now still own it.
Yep.
Two brothers, one in the kitchen, one at the front, and we vendor financed it and we actually did a vendor finance with a share holding. So we brought them in, 10% each, vendor financed it, then sold them another 10% each in vendor finance. Okay. And over a period of 5-6 years, the girls went and had kids and the boys owned it outright. So that was another creative way. So the point I wanted to make there, not to put you on the spot, is that there is more than one way for people to actually create a deal. And again, working with professionals and a team. So, good business brokers, good lawyers, good accountants, you can structure that deal to make it work.
And the issue still is that you will find that solicitors and accountants will be resisting that arrangement.
Do you find they just want transactions?
But sometimes that might be the only way to sell.
Yeah, and we've got some great ones in our community, which is good. Yeah. So we've got some great, accountants and lawyers that we work with here at the Coffee Commune to help you guys with that. So, you got your team at BDO and you got your team at Hill House Lawyers and stuff like that, all the people that you've obviously networked with. Sure. Jodie, because I always say it's good to move as a team and people can, and even insurance partners, making sure your insurances are in order, which is a big one. There's a cafe on the TV the other day really upset because they heard that one of their neighbours caught on fire and they went down there, and luckily it hadn't affected them, but they realised that their insurance wasn't current. So had that fire spread into their shop. Wow. So there's another one that, for listeners out there, make sure your insurance is in order, make sure your legals are in order. Last one I want to touch on in terms of being ready in terms of portfolio, even though there's a whole heap of stuff and they can do it through your assessment tool and the rest of it, is the staffing. We've had with the current government in the past, which was obviously the past government. The current government was the last term government. Over 100 different changes to IR and HR laws. The importance of making sure you have the right documentation with staffing and your teams, in terms, we talked about documentation and processes, but how are you finding that in the industry? You're finding some of because it's normally the last thing I see that cafe owners are doing. Like yesterday I delivered a program to a whole heap of cafe owners on the Gold Coast, and they said, what do you mean, do we have to have staff contracts? And I said, it is mandatory to have contracts for every single staff member. So if you're listening to this, you need a contract for every staff member. Yep. You need a psychosocial plan, which includes survey. And they go, but I'm just a cafe. I've only employed 2 people. Doesn't matter. Are you finding that's quite common too, the back end? Because obviously that stuff comes up in DD, doesn't it? When people are doing their due diligence.
Again, you've got the staffing and the lease, which we touched on there, the 2 major expense drivers, and that's where you need to be protected. And with all the new regulations that are coming through, just to be on top of it. Yeah. With a buyers want predictability. So they want business as usual, so they want to take the staff on board. So you need to ensure that the track record of you, the seller, with the staff, there's no red flags. Yes.
And the number one red flag is super. Make sure your super is up to date. Yes. It is, not only now is it a criminal offence with wage theft to not have people, but the number one thing they're looking for is superannuation must be paid and employee benefits must be paid. And that's a big red flag when it comes to selling, right? Yeah, that can make or break the deal straight away. Yep. Because no one's taking on a business that's got unmet liabilities that break the law. Yeah. So,
it's just inheriting problems.
It is, and stressing that importance. Right, and so you're going to be sale ready. You need to make sure that all your staff
minimise
benefits.
Risk at every point in turn. Minimise risk. So look through your staffing. Look through again to labour on about it. Your lease. Look through your financials. That exit readiness. Take the time to do that now because you can fix it. You can make those changes so that when you come to deciding to sell, it can be seamless.
Yeah.
Especially in the hospo industry because, dare I say it, it's a dream of many people to own a cafe.
Yeah, it is.
And so quite often it's the first buy. And so you're not dealing with seasoned buyers. You're dealing with people, this is the first thing that they're buying. And so they're very nervous. You know, and they're getting a lot of flack from everyone about, this is a problem, that's a problem. So it only takes a small thing to throw them over the edge. So getting all those little things ironed out, so that's not a problem, that's not a problem, that's not a problem. That just makes it easier.
Well, it's a good segue into the emotions of it, right? So if you're selling a business, talk us through some of the way you can prepare yourself emotionally. Because, I mean, you guys are dealing with both sides, right? You'd be dealing with the emotions of a seller and the emotions of a buyer. So, feel free to use some examples. You don't have to mention names. But I mean, what have you seen, and some good tips around managing the emotions on both sides? So let's talk about the emotions of a seller first.
So let me start by saying one of the things we find is that sellers are generally their worst enemy.
Yeah.
They've got good intent, but quite often, if they try to do too much or they try and take over the situation, it generally causes
gets messy.
So it gets messy, and that's really why it's one of the primary reasons you need a broker. Yeah. You need an objective person.
I agree 100% because I mean I've been able to do some cool stuff, but one of the most standout things for me in my learning, and I love learning, was doing Harvard University with Jim Zabinius. Jim Zabinius is the master negotiator for Estee Lauder, and he's the lead lecturer at Harvard. And I did the course, and it started off. It was a week course. It was a year's course done in a week. And long story short, start off with small negotiations right through to massive ones. And the key learning for listeners is just what you just said there, right? Is that there's 3 types of discussions: interest, rights, and power. And what happens is that when you let a seller take control or a buyer and a seller communicate, they're going to talk about their rights and their power. No one's talking in the best interest.
No, it's not a win-win.
That's right. Whereas you bring in a group like yourself, you bring in professionals like yourselves, and you guys take it automatically to what is the best interest of the seller and what is the best interest of the buyer. So you make a great point there, Vince, and throwing in some learnings there for the listeners. Nothing ever comes good out of a discussion. And you think about this, the last time you had an argument of any type, personally, professionally, family, or with yourself, it's a power and a rights discussion versus a best interest. You can't possibly argue negatively when it's in the best interest. And so you land on an amazing point. The other one I want to touch on, which is that they do at Harvard, is the ZOPA, the zone of possible agreement. Now, of course, if you're selling, there is no ceiling. You want max, but if you're selling, there is a minimum. And so talk us through that. That's another way where sellers have to get out of their own way, right? Set a number and get the fuck out of the way, so to speak, right? How do you find that? Whereas the greedy person, they see it in real estate a lot. Oh, I want 1 million. Okay, just got you 1.2. Oh, now I want 1.5.
We see it a lot in business sales.
Yes, tell us, talk us through it. Because this is the opportunity to say to the sellers, hey guys, this is some of the things to be careful. So one is keep discussions at interest level. And in terms of setting a price,
yeah, and so I guess it comes back to the appraisal thing, right? So it really is important to get a proper appraisal of what we think the business is truly worth.
Good, yeah.
And so we kind of set a benchmark and say, well, look, this is what it is.
Yes.
Now we can go to market, try for some more. But at the end of the day, this is more or less where it's going to be.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. You've got an actual formula, you've got a strategy, you're taking the ego and emotion out of it, which is all of our detriment when we get caught up in our own egos and emotions. And we always think, of course, the whole adage, the Italians talk about it. When I'm selling, I'm selling platinum, and when I'm buying, I only want to buy bronze. And it's got to find that equilibrium, right? You got to find that zone of possible agreement, and the best way to do that is through appraising it, looking at it, making sure that your systems are right, because obviously everything that's harder today is going to be a lot easier down the track. And I was on the flip side of that. BDO will tell you the story. They did our sale. It took them 3 months of work to get us business exit ready. So we had a buyer. There was 3 people that wanted to buy our business straight away. And we weren't business exit ready. I had to bring BDO in full time for 3 months to get all of that back end documentation and financials and leases and legals and all sorts of stuff.
Underestimate how technical it can be because again you do have all those other parties that you need to work in with.
Yeah. And again, people say, but it doesn't matter what the size of the sale is. And you guys do sales from small to huge sales. It's the same process, right? Make sure that the back end meets the front end and make sure you're ready, and then you go out to market and you'll end up with the best deal possible.
We actually find sometimes that the smaller deals are harder than the bigger deals.
Yes, unfortunately. Now let's talk through the emotions of a buyer. What are some of the common emotions, besides the fact that we know they want to pay peanuts for everything? What else do you find?
Well, we still have those that and we lightly touched on it, dream of having their first business and they love hospitality, and that's where they feel that their first adventure would be. So They could be coming in from that passion point of view there. They could be coming in from wanting an extra revenue stream or a sole revenue stream. So you have those that might be looking just for hospitality or looking for other allied industries. Or having said that, we deal with a lot of other businesses from the small through to the multi-million dollar price point
and
there.
Make that point that Link is not just about massive businesses. It can be from micro business to small business to medium and to large business. You guys cover the whole gamut. So, the listeners need to understand that, because I've heard that so many times. I'm just tiny. It's a little sale. I don't need a broker. It's not about don't use the word broker. You need an expert. You need an expert that knows their stuff, that's going to navigate it for you, because they're going to make it much more efficient and better value. And value at the end is the difference in what you get and what it's cost you.
Yeah,
and I've seen a lot of DIYs. I've done it myself. Yeah, that's great. How'd it work out for you when it finishes? Oh, I ended up with less money. Or I ended up with more headaches, or I ended up with more legal ramifications because you're legally, there's legalities when you're selling a business or buying a business. Yep. There's compliance issues that you've got to be across too. So I've got to make that point to the listeners. If you're thinking of DIY, it'll be as an industry expert, the first thing that I'd say is it's going to cost you either emotionally, money, or legally, or all three, which is even worse. So just really, guys, as I said, I've been in this is not my first rodeo. I've been in this industry for 36 years. It's something that I've seen happen. Anytime somebody thinks I'm going to take the easy option today, it becomes very difficult tomorrow. We've got a team of experts here at the Coffee Commune. We've got a great community. Lean into it. It costs nothing to reach out to you guys. The links will all be there. Reach out to you and get those appraisals and have that conversation.
And that's what I think what we want to stress is just have those conversations. Give us a call, and we still want to meet and greet. We want to hear your story, as well as the facts, the figures, the financials, but just hearing of your journey sooner rather than later. We don't want the call, or we prefer not the call, to say, I'm tired, I just want out, I want it sold.
I'm burnt out. It's one of the hardest stories, right?
We do have a lot of those calls. Yeah. So what we're here to stress is to have these conversations with us. Over coffee, over lots of coffee. Have those conversations.
We like coffee drinkers.
Yeah, absolutely. Just be prepared now. That's what we want to stress from this.
All right, so to bring us home, let's talk about some current trends in the hospitality. So one of the ones I've noticed, obviously, I've been in this is, I poured my first coffee. I'm 50. I poured my first coffee when I was 14 in my brother's pizza shop. There we go, at Ashgrove, Naples Pizza. And it was watery as shit, and didn't know what I was doing, right? It was back in those days when cappuccinos looked like froth cakes and, and all the rest of it. But how different the industry's changed, but how different businesses have changed. And one thing I say to people is what I've seen, if we use COVID as a line in the sand, pre-2019, so pre-2020, 2019, when COVID was started kickstarting here in Australia, a lot more businesses were sellable or saleable. Fast forward now, 1 in 10 cafes closed last year, and a lot of those cafes that are closing have got first-timers that get excited with no idea going in there, not knowing that they've 90% chance they're going to fail as well. Yep. The first question I've got is, how saleable is a cafe in today's market now? And what's the trend around that? So you're seeing cafes are still selling. Are they getting more for their money, getting their less? Is there a divide? Is there, a segregation where there's a lot of, if you're an average cafe, you're getting nothing. If you're a really good cafe, you're getting top dollar, and cafes, restaurants. Yeah. What's the trend? What are you guys seeing from your data specifically?
I think for a cafe or a restaurant that have really addressed what their customers want, and they do one thing and they do it really, really well, I think those businesses are quite marketable.
So the specialty cafe and when I mean specialty cafe, I don't mean specialty coffee, guys.
No.
Let's get away from that. When I say specialty cafe, they know their unmet needs. They know what problem they solve. They have the relevant products and services for their customer, and they tell a compelling story, right? Yes. And when people ask me what's the secret to running an amazing business, especially in hospo, but in any business, it's those three things. Are you solving problems better than the cafe next to you or in your area?
Another major.
Have your products and services more relevant than the competition? And are you telling a better engaging story than the competition? So anyone that's doing that obviously has a very sellable and attractive business.
Good formula there. So that is an easier transaction.
Yeah.
And buyers will look at that and be quite attracted to that model.
And what's trending in terms of profitability? We know IBIS came out last year, which is quite scary. So IBIS 2 years ago said it was about 7.5% if you're making money in a cafe. It was about 7.5%. Last year came out at 3.5%. What are you seeing now, for those that have got it right?
For those that have got it right.
You say it's still single digits?
No, of late we've seen ones that they've really got they've got
everything lean, mean, and operating,
and they've addressed their pricing.
Yes,
as we know,
don't be scared of putting your prices up.
Don't be scared of putting your prices up. And so we're starting to see businesses doing 12, 15.
That's good. Yep. And I don't think you'll see much more than 15. No. But you go pre-COVID, 2025 was the benchmark, right? Yep. And it brings me to this point where a lot of people say, what should and I get asked all the time across the country, right? And internationally, I had some media from the US reach out the other day. What, as an industry expert, what should a cup of coffee be? And I said the key word there is should. Cup of coffee should be $9 or $10, right? And it should be if we still expected cafe owners to make 20, 25% profit. But cafe owners are now making single-digit profits. Some are still making 12, 15, but most of them making single digits, if at all. They'll be doing that if they're working in their business. So a cup of coffee is about $7. But it should be 10 if the margins are the same. And people go, well, what's changed? Well, the only thing that hasn't changed is GST. It's still 10% of your sale. But electricity and gas and all the rest of it is now 10% of your, used to just be something you paid, now you've got a budget for it. Cost of goods are still 20, 25%, but obviously relative to going up. And wages, and this is something I never miss the opportunity for people to understand. Wages used to be 30% in cafes. They're now 45 if they're lucky, 40 to 45. Anyone that's trading under 40%, I say open a bottle of champagne and celebrate. And nobody wants to pay their staff less, but they can only pay them in relation to what the customer wants to pay at the till. And I always use that opportunity to educate the consumer. No owner of quality wants to pay their staff less, and trust me, cafe owners are not getting paid less. They're over $50 an hour on a Saturday and Sunday now, right? And they're over $30, $35 an hour Monday to Friday. They're getting paid well for the unskilled, or call it unskilled technical labour, so to speak, to what they're doing. But of course, we'd love to pay them $50 an hour all the time, but you're going to be paying $10, $12 for a cup of coffee. So you've got to try and find that sweet spot, and that's just a bit of side education for people to go. So don't be scared of putting your prices up and explaining why. If you're a bigger format restaurant or cafe, your expenses are higher than somebody that's a smaller format, that's just an espresso bar with less staff. The key comes back to what you guys said, is know your numbers. And that eventually, that doesn't change. The formula doesn't change. Know your numbers, know your percentages, do your assessments, have a look at what it's done. So there is still opportunity for people to sell their businesses. Are they getting more or less than what they used to for their businesses?
Generally speaking, pre-COVID, we would have got more. Yeah, for sure. But again, we find, depending on the size of the business and the location and the scalability of it, etc., we can get really good multiples. But for your standard,
what's a standard multiple now? You're still trading around 2, 3.
2 to 2.5.
Yeah. And see, years ago, when using COVID as the line is in, you're looking at 3 to 5. But again, we've got a flood. People don't understand, and this will help people put it in context. Pre-COVID, there was 19,000 cafes in Australia. There's now over 26,000 cafes. The barriers to entry are so low, and don't get me started, but I'll give you a couple of the snapshots. Council's allowing people to open cafes anywhere and everywhere. It's one of my bugbears, right? They're letting them open in hairdressing salons. They're letting them, the Italians think we're mad. They're going, since where does hair and food mix? Like, they really do. I'm in Italian descent, so I've got a lot of Italian. And they're like, since when do you let somebody open a food venue or a drink venue, beverage venue in a hairdresser's? Like, are you guys retarded? Like, it's just out of control. And I'm not for, communism and dictatorship, certainly not. But I'm not for open enterprise where you're sending people broke because you're oversubscribing licenses. But no education to open, the barriers to entry to open. You don't need to have, food handling courses and all the rest of it to open a business. You do to operate, but you don't to open. So, that's like saying, but I can't open a medical centre if I don't have a medical degree, which is rightly so. I can't be a lawyer if I don't have a law degree. So the barriers to entry are so low in hospitality that we've got this oversupply. And then throw in the landlords. They think that they tell you they're giving you a free fit out, but they're paying, instead of paying 7% rent, you're paying 10 or 12% rent. There is no such thing as free. No. So these are just some of the things that, listeners really need to listen for that have changed over the years, is that, and why we have 26,000 cafes, but we've got 1 in 10 closing. And that is a figure that nobody wants to, that nobody should be hearing, and you certainly don't want anyone part of that. You don't want to be part of one of the 10 closings. So, that the stuff we've covered today around exit readiness and all the rest of it is also a health check for your business. Do I have a healthy business? Yeah. If I don't have a sellable business, then to me, you don't have a healthy business. You should always be building a business to be exit ready, and bringing it all together to wrap up is all the things you guys both spoke about are so integral. Even if you don't want to sell, they're integral to a healthy business.
That's right. Anything could happen. Right?
Totally. One last part for you guys. So if you've got, you both got 60 seconds. Take 2 minutes, no problems. And you were sitting down, I'm a cafe owner, I'm looking at selling. What would be your best pieces of advice,
If you're feeling overwhelmed or you just have that little inkling, reach out. These conversations we're highly recommending happen sooner than later.
So
and
proactive.
Being empowered. So with data and with hearing your story, you will see the gaps that you need to address to make it more powerful at the end for you. So again, have a chat. That's what we hear about.
Pick up the phone,
It still is a service industry. Reach out to us and set yourself up.
Yeah, I love that. And again, it just screams proactive. You've got to be proactive. We did a podcast many months ago with lawyers, and the first thing that came out of it that everyone ended up loving was the proactive approach. It's a lot cheaper to be proactive. And we use a specific example that one of the gentlemen from Hill House talked about. He goes, a $10,000 shareholders agreement might sound expensive, but a $10,000 shareholders agreement could save you minimum $250,000 in court.
Absolutely.
And I mean, when listeners heard that, it was like, holy geez. That's crazy. In this case, reaching out and getting your proprietary assessment tool across their business, even if they're not looking at selling today, can actually be the difference with the health check of their business and making sure that they have a healthy business. And it'll help them build a strategy to build a solid foundation business. So I love that. Vince, what would you be saying?
Well, I'm probably going to put it in a snapshot. I'll say be prepared to spend some money.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Be prepared to spend some money, because a lot of people try to do some things on the cheap, and the reality is, your shareholder agreement's a good example. But if you want to get a proper, nice, clean exit, be prepared to get the right people involved. It's going to cost some money, but it'll be worth it in the long run.
Yeah, and that's where that value is, right? At the end of it is, and I say ROI is not just money; it's also time. It's also health. I've seen so many people, and you would see this all the time, the anxiety and all the rest of it. So listeners, please think, when you're thinking ROI, it's not just that bank account. I'll tell you what, I'd take my health over a bank account any day of the week, and I've been there, 70 kilos overweight and all the rest of it. But no, and that was a catalyst for me selling, right? I had to get my life in order physically and spend more time with my kids. And that was a catalyst. It certainly wasn't money, because we were making plenty. So there's different reasons for people to sell. There's some key takeaways there. Different reasons for people to sell. Make sure you get prepared, get the right experts around you. If you're not sure, step one, just reach out to Link Australia. The guys here, Vince, Jodie, they're more than happy to help. The links will be on the podcast. Reach out to these guys. They're great partners here at the Coffee Commune. They've worked with other people here and cafes already. So, and you've got a proactive approach, which is fantastic. And what we say is surround yourself with good people and good things happen. So I want to personally thank you for your time. I'm sure the listeners help. Any closing remarks, anything we missed that you wanted to share?
Yeah, just on a positive note, there is actually a lot of activity in the market at the moment.
Okay.
So the things are selling. We've got our buyer inquiry rate is
all-time
probably
high.
at all-time high.
There we go. That's some exciting news.
So we've got a lot of inquiries. So albeit, we're hearing a lot of, there was in this podcast, a fair bit of, I guess, negativity.
Well, I don't say negative. I say what that foundations of what they got to get right.
Yeah, right? But the reality is that if the business is solid, businesses are selling.
Yeah, good. So there's activity out there, and that's something to really take away.
Acquisitions, those that are wanting to buy multiple sites, they're red hot buyers at the moment.
Yeah, great. So you heard it there. There's activity in the marketplace. Step one, reach out, get your business assessed, talk to the guys, start the conversation. Nothing happens if nothing happens. It can't be any cleaner than that, right? Nothing happens if nothing happens. So pick up that phone or get on that email, send them to Jodie an email. She's very proactive, and work with the team and see where you are. And guys, if you're thinking about owning a business, the best time to be exit ready is before you even open. And it's one of the advices I tell everyone right now is get it ready, build it, no different to how you're building a 10-story building. You don't start at level 2 or 3. No. The hardest part's coming out of the ground, getting those foundations right so that every level becomes strong. And it's one of the biggest tips I give any business owner in any industry, whether it's micro, small, medium, or even public companies and international companies that I work with. I say to them, if your foundations are not strong, at some point, one of the levels are going to fall over. Yeah. So you need to get, and I lived that myself at Di Bella Coffee. We hit 2010, we were definitely one of Australia's largest, if not the largest. And it was a shit show because we didn't have the back end meet the front end. The legals didn't meet everything up forward. The financing was out of whack. We're trying to self-fund everything, but we couldn't because we were growing too quick, cash flow, all sorts of stuff were happening. And we didn't have an assessment tool. We didn't have the right people around us, and we had to do it very quickly. So we learned from our mistakes. So, it's one of the reasons why I'm such a big advocate. One of the reasons we do the podcast where we want to bring experts like yourself that have been there, done that, to share their experience. Yeah. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
We look forward to you guys working with a lot of our community and getting them the most money possible. And on the other side, getting buyers great opportunity to expand and grow.
Yeah, linking them together.
Yeah. Well, thank you, guys. You'll see the links on there. Use the links. Contact Link Australia. The team are here to service you. Until next time, you've been listening to Phil Di Bella on Been There, Done That. Go and be the best you can be. That's a wrap for today. Keep listening for more episodes of Been There and Done That. The Coffee Commune is here to help accelerate your potential. We want you to be better tomorrow than today. Until next time, you've been listening to Phil Di Bella. I'm the founder and managing director of the Coffee Commune, a place where the coffee community comes to collaborate.